right, welcome back to another Earnings Lottos Power Half Hour Live. I'm your host, Pete. Today we will be using EarningsLottos.com to find the best movers that report this afternoon and tomorrow morning. Feel free to check the website out, EarningsLottos.com, and then make an account. Oh, I got you, don't worry. Make an account, and then you'll be able to see the deep dive. Everything that I do is free. The only reason I ask you to register is that I can send you emails every once in a while to just give you reminders on how to support me, because there is just a slight bit of overhead on my side, but I do it for the love of the game. I do it for the earnings bangers, and I do it for you guys. So without further ado, let's take a look at the deep dive, and we will find a mover for today. UNFI, that was one of the high EL scores that reported this morning, and I want to say it went down to like 30, high 35s, 30, low 36, and then bounced back. So not the greatest earnings move there, but it is a cheap stock. So that's kind of something I hark on pretty often. Those cheaper stocks, not really the best candidates for earnings movers. This afternoon, though, as you guys probably know, we have AVAV, which has an EL score of 72, and we have Oracle, which has a nice EL score of 69. Very nice. We will look at all the ones reporting this afternoon and tomorrow morning, though, just so that we get a good, overhead view on what's going on. So first, we will start with Groupon. Groupon used to be kind of a more expensive stock. I don't think it was that expensive, but as you can see, this 90-day chart, it did start off December around like the $17 level, and it's bled since then. It does have a really good history of moves over 10%. So there's only one quarter in the past 2 years that it has missed that move up or down over 10%. So if you like the cheapies, Groupon is certainly one to play for today. Usually I suggest against the cheapies, but because Groupon does have a really, really consistent history of going over 10% up or down, I do think it's a good one to play today. So if you can't make up your mind on Oracle or AVAV, I think you're allowed to play Groupon. And we'll look at the strangles that the website is finding and try to find a good opportunity. If it feels like we're forcing it, we're not going to do Groupon. But I do think it's a decent one for today. Narrative intel, we're pulling in not the best narrative intel for Groupon. We're getting the caution sign on it, but it does look like any guide change can swing it. And then you can see it's an unstable stock kind of after earnings. So it does kind of have those kind of interesting weird swings. The narrative that it has going for it, as you can see, Narrative Torch is a turnaround narrative. So like we touched on with the chart, over the past 90 days, it's kind of been bleeding in price. And I would imagine that the fundamentals on the heels of the last quarter's report are probably the catalyst for that move down. Taking a look at the strangles we are finding, that 13 call has a lot of volume over open interest. It's a good contract price for this cheap of a stock. So it's kind of hard to say. That's a lot of volume. I would probably bet that it's a combination of sold and bought contracts. This to me looks like call spreads. Maybe they're buying 13 and selling at 13, or they're doing something else on the call side. The 11 put doesn't really have a ton of volume over open interest. It doesn't have any volume over open interest, but regardless, doesn't have a lot of volume on the day anyway, so it doesn't really show a lot of immediacy to me. So I would lean to the call side apprehensively on Groupon. I don't think it's a must play, but I do like this 13 call, and it's pretty cheap. So if you want to throw a couple contracts at that, I think that might be a pretty good idea. If it does have good narrative, or it does have good guidance in regards to kind of a turnaround scenario, then your 13 calls are probably going to be looking pretty good. And 13 isn't that too far out of the money, right? It's just a little bit more than 10% out of the money. So I like 13. I would play as close to the money as you can as possible. And that just means whatever kind of fits your budget, your portfolio, in your kind of psychology that way. But I do like the 13 call for Groupon, and I hope that they have some sort of news on their earnings that kind of turns the stock around, because it has been bleeding for a while. All right, one of the big boys today, AVAV. So I think everyone probably knows AVAV by now. It's a defense contractor. They kind of specialize in drone and kind of aircraft system type thing. Really good EL score. Pretty good expected move, $220 a share. So a 10% move off of that, you're looking at close to 250, probably like a 244, 240 move up, and then down probably just under 200. So maybe 190, 195. 4 quarters out of 8, AVAV has made a move 10% or more after its earnings report. So that's not too bad. It's not a must play, right? It's not a MongoDB. It's not a deck. It's not something like that. But if you are looking for opportunities this week, AVAV is certainly one of your higher quality opportunities. It has very good narrative intel, as you can see. There is a good narrative torque with drones and autonomy spend. They do well in defense drones. Obviously, there is a lot of geopolitical nonsense happening right now that kind of has to do with drones and that kind of thing. So if you like playing catalysts in the moment, maybe this is one that you want to look at. I don't anticipate the AVAV CEO saying anything about the current war or whatever you want to call it going on. But they may, I can see him referencing like a future guidance type thing, maybe alluding to it without actually specifically mentioning what's going on right now in the Middle East. Interesting strangle that the website is pulling up. This 300 call, 35% out of the money up, 28 cents on the contract, 500 volume over 189 open interest. I can almost guarantee that these are sold. This looks like a sold call position to me. So traders are not anticipating AVAV to get up to that 300 level. And then on the downside, there's that 190 that I kind of touched on very briefly. It's a little too far out of the money down. I think if you're going to play something like AVAV, you want to go a little closer to the money just because it has a history of those 10% moves, not 15% moves. But this $1.75 contract looks very lotto-ish pricing to me. So, and good volume over open interest, 539 contracts bought and sold today versus 77 that were just waiting on the chain, waiting to be closed. So likely that's a combination of bought and sold, but because it's $1.75, I would say the majority are bought. So I think you're okay buying a lotto put on AVAV. I don't think it'll get as far to this 190 level, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did make like a 10% or almost 10% move down. So that's just kind of my thoughts there based on this strangle. If you have conviction on AVAV, if you're holding shares and you're feeling one way or the other, if you know more about the fundamentals than I do, disregard everything I just said and play your game. But if you are looking for an earnings mover, an earnings banger, AVAV lotto put might not be a bad idea. Next one, Oracle. So Oracle Sporkle. So everyone that trades earnings should know Oracle by now. A big tech stock. They focus on like cloud-based, a little bit of security. They pioneered the first commercial SQL-based related database management system. I have discussed Oracle with coworkers in the past in marketing positions. So definitely a very well-known name, even outside of the stock market. Good narrative intel for Oracle, as you can imagine. It is tied to the NVIDIA DGX cloud hosting and large-scale GPU clusters. So commentary on anything related to large-scale GPU or maybe something involved with NVIDIA, that can certainly move the stock one way or the other. We'll look at we'll touch on the moves. So Oracle, great stock price, 150. So you're looking at like a $15 move up, $15 move down. Really good, consistent history of moves over 10%. So 6 out of the last 8 quarters, it has made a really good move of 10% up or down. That's why traders focus on Oracle Sporkle when it comes to earnings. I will kind of throw a monkey wrench into that in 1 second, but first we'll look at the strangles. So good volume, actually fantastic volume over open interest for the 160 call. Notice how it is not more than 7% out of the money. So this to me certainly looks like they are bought. That's 24,440 contracts that were bought and sold today versus about 6,500 that were just chilling there on the chain. I do like this strike as a bot position. I don't know if Oracle will make a full 10% move tomorrow, and it kind of looks like that's what traders are anticipating. Maybe kind of a small grind or like a less than 10% move up, which is why this 160 is getting so much attention. $4 a contract is pretty pricey for a lotto, I would say. Obviously, it depends on what your portfolio looks like. On my portfolio, that's pretty pricey. I like $1.50 to maybe $2 for my lottos, but that's just me. The put side, so classic sold put positions, right? 130p is 13.5% out of the money down. They expired this week. They're being traded at about 97 cents a contract. 10,715 contracts bought and sold today versus 9,246. This definitely looks like a sold position. So I would say that the sharp money or the traders on Oracle are certainly expecting a move up, but maybe not a move up that would reach 10%. And they're probably not expecting more than 10% down, which is why that 130p is being sold, I would imagine. Now, the monkey wrench I mentioned. I really like focusing on stocks that have smaller share floats. I believe that the smaller the share float is, the easier the stock can move up and down in price. Oracle has 1.7 billion shares, so that's pretty large. That means it needs a lot of liquidity in order to move the price. Now, this is something that I've said for quarters, a few quarters on Oracle, and it's just kind of ignored what I've said, and it's made crazy moves. There was one quarter, you guys all remember it probably, but it made like close to a 20 to 30% move up. So if given the liquidity, if given the money, the premium coming in on the heels of earning, if that's good, then Oracle can move. If Oracle earnings are kind of in line or just meh, then I don't really expect Oracle to make that big of a move. So that's kind of what I'm anticipating. I'm kind of thinking that it's going to make a smallish move up to maybe 160 or that range, but not a must play, although it does have 6 out of 8 moves. Not a must play for me. I'm not going to spend, what was it? It was like $4. I'm not going to spend $4 a contract for a lotto. So for me, I'm going to fade Oracle. If it hits 160, if it hits 170, 180 above, then I will do victory laps for you guys. I will roll out the red carpet. I'll pop the champagne and everything. But for me, Oracle is a fade today just based on what we're seeing in the strangles. IDT, don't know much about IDT. It looks like it's just a telecommunications holding company. There is a decent number of moves over 10% up or down for IDT, albeit a kind of a cheaper share price of $50. So you're looking at 55 up, 45 down. Not the best narrative intel. It's what we would consider a slow compounder, low narrative, but it is, as you can see, typically less earnings, event volume, or volatility. So volume leaders for the strangles were pulling in the 60 call, 17, almost 18% out of the money up. That certainly looks sold to me, even though there's not a ton of contracts there. And then on the put side, 50p, 2% out of the money down. Not a ton of volume on IDT. I don't like this. I don't like when there's just not a lot of volume because that doesn't really give you a good peace of mind that you can get out of the contracts tomorrow or in time. So I would say fade IDT. This volume over open interest on the 50p is interesting to me, but I'm not going to force that, nor would I suggest you guys to force it unless you know the company better than I do. Go for it, but I would say fade IDT. You guys are going to hear me say fade a lot, and I probably miss a lot too. I don't have any FOMO because, like I've said, I only put myself in the best possible scenarios, best possible setups. And so far today, I haven't really found one of those that speaks to me, but we move on. So Domo is our next one for today that reports this afternoon. Very, very, very cheap stock, $4.30. Used to be a little pricier. 6 out of 8 moves over 10%. So if you like the cheapies, like Groupon, maybe look at Domo. Not the best narrative intel. The caution sign similar to Groupon. let's look at the strangles we're finding. I don't like any of these contract prices. The 5 call, I think, is too far out of the money up. There's not even more volume over open interest, so that doesn't really speak to me. The 4P is a little bit more realistic, within 10% of the money down, but that contract price is just too cheap, and I would say you're forcing it if you try to play Domo. So I would consider this one a fade too, although it's interesting that there is more volume over open interest on the 4P, and they expire next week. So they are OPEX contracts or monthly contracts. But I would say Domo's safe to fade. Franco Nevada Corp, I don't want to look at. Sega, we can look at. This one, I want to say, I don't know if you guys can remember the monkeypox little thing that happened after COVID. Sega was a popular stock in regards to monkeypox. So there is some sort of weird nostalgia there with this stock around traders. Not even finding liquid options for Sega. So I don't like this at all. And it's a really, really cheap stock. So I'm just going to ignore it and kind of move on. Joy, I don't want to talk about. EVLV, we'll look at it just in case. So it looks like AI-based touchless security screenings using AI software, cloud services. 3 moves out of 8, over 10% up or down, although really, really cheap stock again. So 5.38 a share. Nothing really standing out as far as the strangles that we're pulling up. So I'm going to say this one is a fade as well. LDI, I think, is way too cheap. I don't even want to look at it. And whatever Kodiak gas service is, I couldn't care less either. So I'm not going to look at that one either. Sprinkler, we will check out just because this one's kind of interesting to me for some reason. I don't exactly know why. It is a really cheap stock. A decent, good, not great history of moves over 10%. So 3 out of the last quarters, it's made a 10% move up or down. Pretty good expected move based on the options chain positioning right now. Pretty decent narrative intel. So this is definitely one that could get a sleeper re-rate. It can definitely gap on good guidance or ARR trends if the investors or if the Sprinkler or CXM investors decide to buy re-acceleration or margins. On the volume leaders, and so now this is kind of off my list. So I'm not really liking these strangles or these strikes that we're picking up on the site. 750 call, way too far out of the money. No volume, not a lot of open interest. Same thing on the 5P, too cheap, not good volume over open interest. So Sprinkler is a good fade. But I think it's one to keep an eye on afterwards. It's like VOYG that reported this morning or yesterday afternoon. I can't remember, but good ones to keep an eye on after earnings, just in case you are interested in like scooping up shares or that kind of thing. I think Sprinkler is one to keep an eye on in that regard. Serve is kind of in that same bucket. I'm not quite sure if I would play it on earnings, but they do a lot with next-gen robots and delivery services and that kind of thing. So I think Serve might be a potential one for shares in the future. And I think it's just a good idea to keep an eye on these stocks and keep an eye and ear out for their earnings and kind of guidance, what the CEO is saying about the company and that kind of thing. Interesting strangle. So this is interesting. The strikes that we're pulling up, the 10 call, very close to the money, 43 cents a contract, more volume than open interest. We always like that. The 950p, very close to the money too, and pretty well priced too, and also volume over open interest here. I'm not quite sure what is going on with Serve, but there is a decent amount of volume. There's a decent amount of open interest too, at least on this 10 call. So there's something going on here, but I don't think it's a must play, nor would I lotto anything on Serve just based on this. I think it's a good fade. I think if Serve had a history of 7, even I think if it had a history of 6 minimum moves out of 8, I might gamble a little bit on the call here. But it's only proven that it can move well on earnings 3 quarters, and that's not enough for me. So I am going to fade Serve, but I do think that this call stands out a little bit and is a little interesting to me. This looks like a classic strangle, classic bot strangle, very close to the money. So I like the 10 call a little bit, but not enough to buy it. It's really, really cheap, but that's the thing. If I buy one contract, what am I going to make? 40 bucks, 50 bucks? Not worth it. Much better risk reward elsewhere. And we still have some pretty good stocks to report later this week. Campbell's. So Campbell's we'll look at real quick. Campbell's Soup, consumer defensive, terrible history of moves over 10%. Nowhere in the last 2 years has it been able to move 10% up or down on earnings. Immediately, it's off my list in that regard. I don't know what this is. Like, why would you, I mean, these are really close to the money. So the 25 call is 1% out of the money up. The 24.50 is 1% out of the money down. And there is more volume than open interest on both ends. I don't like this. I don't know who is degenerate enough out there to buy Campbell's CPB strangle into earnings. It has to be shareholders. It has to be someone that holds shares, because this is degenerate to me. I would never do something like this. There's way too many good opportunities other than Campbell's that report. So I would say this is a fade, but interesting that people are strangling Campbell's like this. I'm going to keep an eye on it tomorrow morning just because I think this is funny. And if it hits for one side, like I said earlier, I will congratulate, I'll applaud those people in that regard. But I don't like Sam Campbell. So I think if I had to make any decisions today, I'm not going to buy any of the earnings today, to be completely honest. I do kind of like the Groupon strangle or the Groupon calls. Not enough for me to buy them. I think I do like the AVAV puts. I don't think it'll get down to that level. But if you are a cowboy type trader, if you love playing earnings and you just throw your money at everything, maybe buy an AVAV put. Maybe get one that's 195, 200 if you can afford it. But just know that 4 out of the last 8 quarters, it has not made a 10% move up or down. So it's kind of a 50-50 on whether or not AVAV moves. While I still have 5 minutes or so, that means I have 5 minutes to place my earnings pick'em. So I'll go ahead and do that. And Oracle, what did we think? What was the consensus looking at Oracle? I can't remember exactly what I was thinking. So based off of the strangle, this is so tough. Oh yeah, we're going to say up. So we're going to say a small move up for Oracle. So on the earnings pick'em, I'll go up and I'll throw in 500. So I will do that. Looks like, holy crap, looks like 6,600 has been bet on up for Oracle and 200 on down. So you know what? I'm going to join the crowd. We'll place 500 on up for Oracle. Adobe, Dollar General, and Dick's, they report later this week. So I'm not going to worry about those today, but I do like Oracle up. So I'll place it. Takes my balance down to 8,400 off from 10,000. The leaderboard has shaken up a little bit. As your bets are out there, it kind of makes it look like you don't have as much money or EL bucks. But if you hit one of those winners, then you go right back up to the top. So that's pretty much all I have for today. I would say Oracle close to the money. I like that. I would say the AVAV Lotto put, maybe. Groupon close to the money call, I kind of liked. But that's about it for today. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys watching. I really appreciate the engagement. Court, appreciate the comment. I appreciate the likes and subscribe. So please continue to like and subscribe to tell me that you like this sort of thing. I really enjoy doing it. Register on the website. Take a look at the rest of the stocks reporting this week, and I will see you all tomorrow at around the same time. I'll try to get on a little earlier. But if you have earnings strangles that report this afternoon and tomorrow, best of luck. I hope you hit a banger. And if you do, let me know in the live stream tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining. Peace.